Now, two Nigerians based in Canada have put together a campaign to honor 75 Igbo slaves who drowned themselves at Dunbar Creek in the U.S. state of Georgia in May 1803, rather than succumb to the indignities of slavery. It was seen as the ultimate act of rebellion against their captors, and the campaign, organized by Ifeanyi Mbanefo and Dr. Rosemary Nwangu, is aimed at preserving their memory. The project has been introduced to key Igbo leaders in politics, business and academia, as well as other eminent Nigerians. One of the eager subscribers to the idea is said to be the Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka.
As some people will say, they drowned because they believed freedom or death was better than bondage. But I dare to say this, I would like the people who are conducting this documentary to take this precaution. We are Igbo people, and it is against the beliefs of the Igbos to commit suicide. How did we justify or arrive at this conclusion that these our brothers and sisters truly drowned themselves, or they were seen as rebellious slaves? Therefore, they were drowned. I'm just asking this as a question because in Igbo culture, it is well established that anyone who commits suicide, which drowning is one of them, does not have a place in the afterlife. Is not even qualified for a funeral. So, my dear sister, Rosemary, and my brother, Ifeanyi, please take this into cognizance when you're making your beautiful movie that aims to portray the travail of the Igbo people, which did not just happen in that epoch. Igbos are still going through all kinds of marginalization and humiliation all over the world. But I'm encouraging you to please take into cognizance this fact that Igbos do not believe in suicide. It is against Igbo culture. It is against our tradition and belief. A person who dies through suicide is only qualified to be thrown into the evil forest. He's not even qualified for a funeral. Thank you, and do have a very pleasant day. Let me show you a bit of a little synopsis of this beautiful work that they are doing.
Igbo men and women chained in the belly of that vessel had already endured the unimaginable, torn from their homeland, forced across the Middle Passage, and sold into a world that promised nothing but cruelty. Yet, when faced with bondage in a foreign land, they made a choice so defiant, so haunting, that it transformed them into legend. Led by their own voices, the captives rose against their oppressors. They overpowered the crew, and as the waters of Dunbar Creek lapped against the Georgia shore, the Igbo captives refused the life that awaited them. Instead, they marched into the water, singing as they walked. The water spirit brought us home, descendants say today. To some, it was a mass suicide. To others, it was a spiritual return, a refusal to let slavery claim their bodies or their souls. The event became known as the Igbo Landing, a story whispered in communities, passed through spirituals, and reshaped into folklore of the flying Africans who rose above their chains and returned to Africa through the sky. But what truly happened that day? Why has history tried to silence their voices? And why does the Igbo Landing remain one of the most powerful acts of resistance in the dark history of slavery?
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the co-creator of the Igbo Landing project, Dr. Rosemary Nwangu. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. You've clearly been inspired by these Igbo slaves and the backstory behind their decision to drown themselves in the sea off the coast of America more than 200 years ago. Tell us how you came across this story.
Well, as we interacted, thank you very much, Charles, for having me. As we've interacted with the intriguing history of Igbo slavery, of the slavery of the black man, the slave trade, and what it did with the cross-civilization and movement of people from Africa to the West and all of that. And we've dug into the history of the Gulaguchi people, where it's not actually new. It's been happening 223 years, but Igbos have gone there over time, have poured libations, have gone to the place to see it. It's in it's in YouTube channels, different AI-generated images.
Yeah, but how did you come across? I mean, what got you interested in doing?
I came across this from researching into the history of the Gulaguchi people and their connection to Igbo land, which they have actually projected to the world, some testing the percentage of DNA connection to Igbo land that they have, and others, you know, trying in their own way to memorialize this project.
And what does that single act of extraordinary bravery and the determination of these enslaved people to resist their oppressors, I mean, what does that say to you? What does it represent for you?
For me, it represents the fact that the African, the black man, can rewrite his history, can rewrite how he is perceived. It represents to me that our ancestors had choices and made these choices and chose dignity over servitude and chose, you know, committed to the greater good. They would rather drown than subject themselves to this life. So that is a lesson that resonates with us even now. What choices are we making? So for me, that act of defiance is something that makes me ask myself questions as well. What can I take, and what is happening now that can be taken from that same epoch? What are the similarities?
So you decided to embark on this campaign. What are you aiming to achieve?
I'm aiming for us to know our history. I'm aiming for the history of these men who sacrificed their lives to be understood and told, so that lessons from it can be told, because even now movements are happening from Africa to the West in search of greener pastures. There are many versions of this story, whether they were deceived or sold, or they were sold. But some versions have it that they were deceived, that there's a better life out there. So still now, if I put a boat in the creek over there and say, come in, there's a better life somewhere, people will move. And then some of the enslavers are saying, well, whatever life they ran away from cannot be worse than the slavery they're subjected to here. So go ahead and manage them as best they can. They ran away from, willingly or unwillingly, they've looked forward to a better life. So for me, the issue is what's going on now? What mirage are we searching for? And where do the answers lie?
Right. And how far have you come in your quest to immortalize their memory? I understand the Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka has given you his support.
Yes. That was actually very, very instrumental to the global voice this is receiving now. Because even the Gulaguchi people have written to thank him severally.
And who are the Gulaguchi people?
The Gulaguchi people are the...
Most people don't know what you're talking about.
The Gulaguchi people are the descendants of these slaves. Who live in Dunbar Creek right now.
You mean the descendants of these African slaves?
Africans.
But how are they the descendants if the Igbo slaves killed themselves?
Okay, you know, we didn't dig into the story, but the story has it that 75 Africans were sold.
So not all of them drowned themselves.
They got somewhere, overpowered their captors and were put into a smaller ship in which they overpowered their captors. And then as they came on to Dunbar Creek in St. Simon's Island, they saw that they were numbered by the plantation owners and decided to walk back and drown. So people saw this story, people hear it. Some were rescued, but it cost $10 to rescue one person. That was a lot of money at the time. So about a few people were rescued. So some stories have it that there were 12, some have it that there were 2, some have it that there were 75. So whichever that some people drowned. People looked at that story. They saw it. The slave owners saw it. The slaves themselves saw it because there were already 630-something slaves in that plantation. So this history was witnessed and was seen. And although the enslavers tried to deny it for the obvious reason of the burden of history, but then the owners of the story kept passing it on from generation to generation. It didn't die. And then it got proven. The Georgia Historical Society proved it. And in 2022, put a little memorial there. There was no Igbo person of 100% DNA present. We don't want that to happen again. And then some things have been done. It's in the museum, in Martin Luther King Museum in Atlanta, and in the Black American Museum in New York. So it's a story that has been proven to have exist.
And you want to put pressure on Nigeria's Southeast governors to join you in this quest.
Yes.
Well, what's been their reaction so far?
We're still waiting for their reaction. We've written to Ohaneze, we've written to the
What do you want them to
Southeast
do?
governors. We want them to acquire that land, a plot of that land. There are 4 plots left now. And
You mean
it's
in America?
in America, in Georgia, in St. Simon's Island. It's a beautiful place. But that memorial remains. And there are 4 plots of land left. Let's acquire one and put a proper memorial for these brave souls who have actually told the story for for Africa, and for every black man. That we can rewrite our history. We can say, well, not disease, not disease, not the stories we get here, get told about Africa.
Right.
We can rewrite it.
Well, thank you very much for bringing that story to our attention. Dr. Rosemary Nwangu is the co-creator of the Igbo Landing project. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.